All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started with our webinar today. Just some housekeeping items. This webinar will be recorded, so we'll send out a link to this recording shortly after. If you do have any questions throughout the presentation today, feel free to enter those in the chat or the Q&A. I'll be trying to monitor those as they come in. We also have Patrick from our customer success team. He's helping me join this call. So if you have really any questions, he'll also be monitoring the chat in the event that I miss any of those. This webinar should be around 30 to 45 minutes. So hopefully we'll have some time at the very end to kind of go over really any kind of questions that you might have. So this webinar, I just want to be really upfront, is for primarily for template designers. So you might be on the call where you're designing certain templates for your team to use, for agents, if you're in real estate, colleagues, different partners or clients. That isn't necessarily, if you are not a template designer, doesn't mean that you're not going to get anything out of this webinar. Just kind of know most of the tips that I'm going to talk about are focused on more of the admin settings within Lucidpress and how you'd actually set up a template. So if you're not a template designer, I think there's still a lot of valuable feedback that you can then pass over to your marketing team, whoever's kind of designing those templates in order to make them better. Most of the features that I will cover are included in our team or our business subscription. So if you're using our pro or our free account, there might be some features that may not be applicable to you, but just kind of know I'm trying to cover a large range of features that should hopefully be helpful regardless of what subscription that you're on. So our agenda, I have three main things that I want to talk about. The first one should be the quickest. I just want to talk about the impact of really great templates and how they can make a really big difference to your team. From there, we'll spend most of the time in like how to make these really great templates and all the different features that you can include. And then lastly, how to increase adoption. So you can create great templates, but if people aren't using them, it doesn't really matter. So there will be some tips there of how you can get people to be more motivated to use these templates. So the first thing that we'll talk about is the impact of great templates. I have a lot of examples of ones that I like and some that I don't like, and kind of the key differences between those two. So great templates, there's a lot of different things here that I'd like to cover. Really great templates allow you to kind of do all of these main things. So the first one that's probably at the top of my list is that empowers other team members to create their own content. That's the whole purpose of a template is, if I'm a designer, I don't want to have to create everything for everyone. I'm sure all of us can relate to having multiple versions of a file on our computer. You might have like version 2, version 13, 14, all the way up there. So that's a really great indicator. If you have that many versions or that many emails going back and forth with PDFs, that's a great indicator that it could be maybe offloaded as a template. Not everything needs to be a template, but definitely content where people are kind of putting in their own input or changing certain items. It's definitely a great spot. So this definitely a great template allows you to focus on larger projects. So I'm not constantly bombarded by these small design requests. It also helps team members stay on brand. So I'm not going to let them just create whatever they want, wherever they want. A lot of the time, I'm sure we can also all relate on this call with kind of cringy moments where we see people use off-brand colors or off-brand fonts. Usually it's the fonts, I don't know why. And this is a really great template will help people just create beautiful content that's on brand. And then also, because you're setting up these templates, not only do they should, look on brand and are on brand, but they should also help deliver like really effective and personalized content. So it's something that's not totally flat like a PDF where really people can't change or do anything to a template, but where they can kind of make those changes and make it more personalized to whoever they're sending this piece of collateral to. And then the last two, a template should be easy to use and also easy to find. So if you have all 6 of these, you're going to have a really great template, and it's going to be definitely more successful for your team to use. So now let's go into real life examples of maybe some good and some not so good templates. I think honestly, the ones that I've kind of picked today, none of them are bad from like a design standpoint. Just some are better templates than others. Some might be just kind of a great example of templates that people can customize on their own, while other ones maybe should just go to the marketing team and have them create this content. So here's kind of two different flyer templates. And I'll just kind of point out things that I like and things that I don't like. This one, obviously, both of these look good from a design perspective. They're pretty clean, great fonts, not too many fonts. The colors are also not too many colors, and it's just visually pleasing. The downside with this one is it's definitely dedicated for like a summer music festival. So if we wanted to make this into a template, unless you're in like a festival business, having a festival maybe like every month or every couple of months, this template is so dedicated to just one specific use case that it's hard to be a template for other events. So you might have, maybe this summer festival, but you might have maybe something in the fall and the winter. And for a user who's not a designer, to have to delete all of the different music symbols and get rid of this guitar, and you're just changing so many of the elements, that's not really a great example of a template. So there's something that you could do with this one to make it be better. I think you can obviously have kind of the same layout and same design, but maybe not as many elements of that kind of need to be removed. So you can kind of do maybe a little bit more simple design. I think that's probably the main takeaway, hopefully, from this webinar for you is designing templates. You have to be in a completely different mindset, since you're thinking about people who may not be comfortable with design or may not be familiar with design, but you're trying to make the template as easy as possible for them, while also kind of balancing, is it on brand, is it effective, and how much can they customize? This template I really like. I think, honestly, everything about this one is really great. It's very simple. People can kind of enter in different services. They can type in different paragraphs here. They can really customize this with their email and website and address. So pretty much everything about this one I really like. The only thing that I would touch on is maybe this image up here in the top. It looks super cool. I really like the overlay effect. But if someone who's not a designer wants to actually swap out this image, it's definitely going to be more challenging for them. So I think for this one, honestly, the only thing I would change is maybe just that image. Maybe just have maybe a little bit more simple of a shape. That way people can just drag and drop and swap out that image if needed. But obviously not every template you want people to swap out images. So this all comes down to balance and preference and on the template basis. So that's kind of what I would do with this one. Here's two other examples of kind of different event schedules. So you might go to a bunch of conferences, things are opening up a lot more. There's kind of some things that I like and don't like about both of these, but if we think about this one has, kind of an event schedule that's multiple days. Maybe someone's attending a conference or you're sponsoring a conference that maybe is only 3 days. So with this one, I kind of like how it's very simple. If they needed to get rid of certain days, it'd be super easy to delete. And then now you have kind of like just 3 days have that schedule rather than like 6 days. So I think this one's kind of a really great, simple, clean layout that can easily put in like the contact info and address and edit kind of the event details. This one I think also visually looks great. It's just a little bit harder because they have so many different sections in here. If you have a specific event that doesn't have all of these, specific call outs and this many sessions that they're attending, that's where something like this maybe is better to just submit via feedback to the designer and have them just create it. So those are kind of two different event templates that I wanted to kind of talk through. I think these are the last two that I have. These ones are both examples of ones that I really like. Obviously, this one's super simple. This one's kind of a really great example if you are doing like a music festival. Like this is one where we still get the idea that it's music. It's a simple photo in the background, but I can then swap this out for a specific, maybe a different event that I'm doing. And without having to change much of the elements of the design, everything's probably, just locked down and simple. So very easy, clean. I like that. So this is a really great example of a template that probably a non-designer, I can definitely have them create this all on their own. This one I also really like, very simple, has spots for people to really customize and put in different text boxes and contact info. And also this is a great example of kind of an overlay that would work a little bit better as a template. Someone, if they really wanted to change out this background image, really all you have is just kind of these transparent orange shapes on top of a photo. So it's not as crazy as, you know, something like this where you have some elements are see-through, some are not. So it's a little bit harder to swap out that image. But this one, someone could easily just drag and drop. It would still have that orange on top of the photo, but they could then customize it. So this one's kind of a little bit better of an example. So hopefully that kind of gets your mind thinking about your own templates. I would definitely go through, if you already have a large library of templates, and just really thinking from a non-designer perspective, what would you want to change? Is everything kind of locked down the way that you would expect? Can you easily swap out images and customize it? So with that in mind, we're now going to go into tons of different features about really great templates. Some of these are very specific to Lucipress. Others are kind of just more generalized that you can then apply to other programs as well. So the first one that I really like to talk about is different placeholder images. So this is an example of just a very simple postcard template that has just like an image that people can swap out. One thing that I recommend that I set up on some of our templates is I just put some like info or different tips of like, hey, you can drag and drop to replace this image, or you can double click. And I'll just flatten that to the image so that that text isn't actually there. It's just part of the image. That way, when they drag and drop, it just fills in with their specific image. So I think there's definitely some pros and cons of this. One, you just have to hope that they don't keep that image there. Granted, hopefully it's pretty obvious for them to swap out that image. I also like having kind of these placeholder images because when they see a template, it just helps them more visually see what it's supposed to look like. On the other side, this is kind of what I've seen is people will put in these like gray or maybe a different color of an image placeholder. So I think this also really works. It's maybe not as eye-catching, especially if you have like a ton of templates where they can replace those images. It just kind of makes it a little bit more bland. But I think this is also a really great way, especially if you want to really make sure that people are swapping out images rather than something like this, and maybe they might forget to replace it. So something to consider there. The other thing related to images, tons of great tips here. So hopefully you learned something new. Lucipress, if you have a template set up and you want someone to be able to replace an image, drag and drop only works if the image is one of our like standard shapes. So if you click on our shape library, here's all of our standard shapes. So they can drag and drop and it will work in any of these. If you have some sort of like, I don't know, very custom swirl where the image is inside of it, if we kind of go back to maybe some of these other examples, it looks like this kind of more rounded shape. It's not quite a circle, so that would be kind of more of a custom image shape. You can definitely still do those within Lucipress, just that drag and drop feature is not going to work. And I think that's totally fine as long as you just, you know, provide different notes and instructions for your users about how to do that. So instead of dragging and dropping, they'll actually select the image icon over on the right pane, and then they'll be able to swap out the image. So I'll go into this postcard template and just kind of show you exactly what I mean. So this one, it's a standard shape. It's a rectangle, so people can drag and drop, or they can double click on the image and that will replace it. If you have, you know, definitely one of those more custom shapes, maybe you have like some sort of like crazy swirl, I don't know what it could be. They'll have to change it by clicking on this icon instead. So that will pull up the same image library and they'll be able to swap out the image. So just something to keep in mind to help just make the ease of use with template swap better. Next slide that I have here is kind of related to all of this, is to add different notes and tips on your templates. So there's two different ways that you can add these notes. So I'll go back into this template and kind of show you those two different methods. So the first one is this little icon. So if I click on here, I can really type whatever instructions that I want. This is where I can say, hey, to replace this image, just double click and you can replace this image. So if you want to add this style of note, obviously it doesn't show up when you print or download it. It'll just show up on this editor portion. If I wanted to add maybe some instructions to this text box, I can right click and then select add note. So I can kind of type in here, I can put in whatever instructions, maybe some ideas of different headlines that they can put for the postcard, and then it will save that note to that object. The other style of note that you can do is by putting basically whatever you want over here in this gray area. So this is a setting that you'll have to turn on for your account if you would like to use this. By default, if you try to add something over in this gray area, it's not going to let you. So if this is something that you do want to utilize, like with this one, I can include like screenshots. So I can say, hey, go to this specific folder or go to this website to find images. It really kind of makes it more customizable. I can even include like some arrows pointing to certain stuff. So I think this is also very helpful. Just kind of depends on the template, whether or not I use this off-page content versus like these like smaller tips. So if you did want to use this gray area, this is something I believe that is part of our team or our enterprise account. So you'll have to go to the admin panel. You do also have to be an admin on your LucidPress account. And then you're going to go to team settings, which is this last tile in the admin settings. And then down here underneath editor defaults, there's an option to show off-page content by default. And that's what we refer to that gray area. So if you turn that on, that gray area will then be enabled on your templates. So you can put whatever you want kind of out here in this gray area.
Hey, Tyson.
Yeah, go for it, Patrick.
Can I add one quick note on off-page content? So it's one of my favorite features that we're able to use. And as Tyson pointed out, you can certainly leave them instructions on which images to use. But let's say you have a template where you really want a key selection of images for them to be able to swap out. You can add any of those into the off-page content, as Tyson just showed you there with the LinkedIn symbol. You can drag anything that would go into a template and off-page content, and then provide the instructions for the users. Hey, if you want to swap this image, use one of the examples here, or so on and so forth. So you can get as creative as you like with this off-page content. And again, it'll never show up anywhere except in the editor in LucidPress.
Yep. Yeah, thanks, Patrick. And I've seen some customers as well, they'll have like an icon library, and they'll just put those over here in this off-page content on every template. In the event you do have like some icons that you want people to either add or swap out. So that is kind of one cool thing. Cool. I know we had one question that came up, and I know that Patrick added it, is if there's any future to add more custom shapes here. And that definitely reach out to us if there are like specific shapes that you're hoping to have. Kind of the workaround would just be to have your shape as an SVG. Again, the drag and drop won't work in that scenario, but yeah, let us know if there's very specific shapes, and we can add, hopefully submit that to our engineering team and have that added to the product. Okay. So the next one is all about having like different page versions in one specific template. So this is all about like anticipating people's needs. This is a social media template that we have for like specific webinars or different events that we're going to that we want to publicize on like LinkedIn or Facebook. So in this one template, instead of having all these different templates, we just have just one specific template with all of the pages as different options that people can pick from. So you can see on this one, it's very simple. This one, the only difference is it has the date in the corner. This one has a little bit different style with the cutout of the speaker. This one has two speakers, and then this one just has like a background image. So I think this is a really great way to just provide a lot of different layouts and designs in one template. That way people can kind of delete which ones they don't need and really anticipate, what they might want to change. Another thing that's very helpful is to think about like how many lines that you want um, people to enter in like their own headline. So I've definitely done this on a bunch of templates where I have an example of one where it should be on 3 lines, and then I have another one where it's only on 2. So in the event they have a really long title, they should use one of those other pages. If not, I lock down the other stuff so they can't even try to use like this 2-line to fit a 3-line. So that's something that could be very helpful. So this allows you to lock down a lot more and be very specific on what is locked down by just having these different versions. Also kind of very connected with those page versions is our page templates feature. So again, this is not very like needed on all templates, but it is very helpful, especially if you do have a lot of different versions or styles that people can pick from. So you can make any page what we call a page template, and that will make it live in this page layouts section within LucidPress. So I've used this definitely on like an ebook or a magazine template where they might want to, add additional pages. You might want to add like this style or this style. I have a similar thing for different social media templates, so they can kind of pick different sizes. So maybe LinkedIn is a little bit different than the Facebook, and they can kind of insert these pages and customize a little bit better. Yeah, as Patrick put in the chat, it's really great for slide decks when people are trying to enter in like different versions of different pages. So if we go back to this like postcard template, maybe I have a couple of different back pages that people can pick from. I can add those all as page options for them to pick from, or I can also include them in this page layouts. So if this is one style, I can right click, create a template from this page, and I can say this is back version 1. I can maybe duplicate this and make a little bit different of a style, like maybe this one, the address is a little bit different, and I have this paragraph a little bit wider. Do something like this. So this could be my different version, create a template from the page, and this will be back 2. So now people can insert these as they want. I can lock them down, and then people can kind of see different options to pick from. The next part, this is definitely specific for LucidPress. These are definitely ways to make your templates a lot more easy for non-designers to use and a little bit faster. So there's 4 different smart fields within LucidPress that you can use, and they definitely have different use cases depending on your templates and maybe what industry you're in. So I'll kind of go through each one of these in more detail. But if you go into a document, you click Insert, and then go down to Smart Fields, we have Profile. This means that it's pulling from whoever's logged into LucidPress. So pulling in like their name or their email, their phone number. We have Team. This is something that's related to the entire team. So this would be like your company name, your company slogan, your name, like company phone number, anything like that. I'll go into more examples of these. Custom, this is the same thing as profile. It just allows you to add additional ones that maybe aren't our standard like default profile. And then all the rest, these like 4 are all related to data automation. So you can connect really whatever data, whatever spreadsheet to LucidPress and then use that within a template. So here's an example of one that is a profile or a custom smart field. Maybe at the bottom of a flyer, I have all of this different contact info for who's creating this flyer. So maybe it's a sales rep, maybe it's someone from a specific department at a school, whatever it may be. I want it to automatically fill in that person's name, their email, phone number, their specific Facebook page, their website, etc. So all of that can be done automatically through the profile and the custom smart fields. I think this is a really great way to just make it more automated for non-designers. And with all of our smart fields, there's like a lot of different options of like how much control you want to be in. For example, if I'm in marketing and I designed this template and I really want to control like the style of their first and last name and maybe the phone number is very particular, I can manage all that in a spreadsheet and upload it to LucidPress. So that is one option. The other one that I just kind of do, and it really just depends on who you're creating the template for. Sometimes I'll just insert the placeholders there, and then in LucidPress, it'll give them a like a warning message that says, "Hey, you have smart fields in this document that aren't filled out," and so they can just manually type in their email and their phone number. So that's definitely more of a flexible approach if in the event you don't want to have to manage everybody's data and figure out what their phone number and email is. So definitely reach out to us if you have more questions about setting this up, but I think it's kind of a great way. The next part is Team Smart Fields. So this is an example. If you wanted to enter these, you will have to be on our team or business account, I'm pretty sure. You'll go to the Brand Assets tab under Smart Fields. And then this is something that would just be applicable to everyone across the entire account. So the best one that I've seen is definitely like a terms of service, or if you have something that's at the bottom of every single document, maybe like a copyright or something. What's really great is you can add this Team Smart field. It's global. It's not going to change depending on who's logging into LucidPress. I can put in my terms of service there, add that to every template. And then let's say come January, and it's 2023, I want to update that year in the terms of service. So I can go ahead and update this field, and then that will update it across all templates, all documents created by all users. So it's kind of a great way to just really just make one change and not have to go into every template individually. So yeah, very powerful and can make a difference there.
Hey, Tyson, can I add a quick note on smart fields? So a couple of things on the team smart fields, and I think Tyson mentioned it. You can only edit those if you're an admin on the account, the team smart fields, but it is one of the few areas in LucidPress that will edit all copies of that template as well. So if your users have made documents off that template and you go in and edit that team smart field, it's going to update it the next time they open it in the platform. So not only can you use it for terms of service, I've seen some customers use it to populate like a weekly or monthly sales deal. So you can go in and adjust whatever that value percentage is. The next time they open it to print, download, or share, it's going to update that field. So these are really powerful if you get creative about how you use them.
Yep. And I've seen even some organizations, they know that they're going to be either moving to a different office or they're going through a rebrand. And so they'll use a lot of these like standard like address, company name. That way, when they do go through that rebrand or they move to a different office, they can update that in one place, and then that updates all of the templates. So yeah, I don't use these a ton, but there are some really great use cases for these. And then the last one is data automation. So really, the possibilities are pretty much endless for how you can use data automation, since you can connect literally whatever spreadsheet that you want to a template and to LucidPress. So this is one example of maybe like a product specific industry. So maybe you're someone who sells fans, ceiling fans. So I can connect like a spreadsheet of all of my different types of fans, what kind of brand they are, what colors they're available in, maybe like some key features, the price. So all that would be in a spreadsheet. And then this would allow you to select and drag and drop those specific products into this template. So it would really make it easy for non-designers to just really customize this with the specific ones that they want to advertise. So a lot you can do with this one, any kind of like product specific catalogs. Here's an example of like a more simple approach to data automation with maybe like a social media post. You might have maybe a form that people submit where they enter in, this one's really specific to like a university, but maybe they enter in like, hey, there's a football game at this time, it's at this stadium, it's versus this opponent. You have that spreadsheet all filled out. And then if someone's trying to make a social media post, they can easily just select and then just apply it to their template. So this would fill in, soccer versus this team, time and location would all fill out. So that could be a really great way, especially if you're using like a Google form or some sort of way of where you're gathering data from someone. This is also the use case for data automation. Maybe you have a spreadsheet of all of the employees or all of your sales reps or all of your clients, maybe all of your departments, whatever it may be, you can connect that to Lucidpress. And instead of this information pulling from who's creating the document, instead you could select, oh, I'm actually creating this for Patrick. So I can select Patrick's name, apply it, and instead it would put Patrick's email, his phone number, and all of his info. So that's another example of data automation. So just wanted to briefly touch on this. There's definitely a lot you can do. I would just recommend reaching out to either us or our support team if you kind of want different examples of how you can set up smart fields or data automation. So yeah, any questions about that? You can also put them in the chat in the Q&A. We can see if we have time at the very end. So now I want to switch gears into locking. This is definitely more of the later stages of creating a template, and that is very specific to Lucidpress. My bonus tip here is sometimes people forget to lock certain objects or certain layers within Lucidpress. So what I just recommend is just doing Control-A. That will highlight everything on the page. And really quickly, if you know something is in blue, that means it's unlocked. So that's kind of a really great way. Sometimes at the very end, before I convert something to a template, I'll just select everything, make sure that it's locked down. So here's an example of this postcard. Another thing that I'll do is maybe just drag and drop from this like gray area. I can highlight everything and I can really quickly see that nothing on this page is locked down. So I can lock all of those elements. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll just do that first and then individually go in and select text boxes and then kind of unlock what needs to be unlocked. So that's kind of a quick way instead of like individually selecting everything and locking it down. Sometimes I'll just globally lock everything and then go in and unlock certain elements. Another cool thing you can do is up here under view, you can do show locking restrictions. So this will also pull up everything that's locked. In the event you forget to lock something, this is where it's not as obvious. It's not going to have a lock next to it. So that's where sometimes I just like to highlight it. That way, for me, it's just easier to see blue and just be like, oh, that's not locked down. So that's one other thing that you can do. In addition to locking, here are some other tips that I recommend. One style that's pretty common amongst a lot of templates, it's a lot of time you'll use like all caps on either like a heading or a subheading. And this is something that you can definitely set up. So maybe like this is supposed to be in all caps. I can go ahead and click on this little T symbol on the side and be able to lock down all caps. So this will automatically change everything no matter what someone types in here, it's going to be in all caps. And then I can lock down size and style. And that way, no matter what someone puts in here, it's going to retain that all caps. So that's something that usually I see that people miss is they just forget to turn that on and they just actually have it, typed in all caps. But that's a really great point of just doing that first. Other things that I'll do when I lock things down is generally I'll, lock down some parts of the style, but a lot of the time I'll unlock maybe font face. So in the event someone needs to bold or italicize something, and I'll usually unlock font size. So this really allows them to, customize a little bit, like maybe they have another sentence or two that they want to fit in this paragraph. If I unlock that font size, they can then adjust this and fit those additional lines. So definitely takes a little bit more trust on their part, but I think it's worth it just so that they can fit what they need to. Again, this is where you can also lock down those all caps so that they don't accidentally change it. So that's kind of another way. Sometimes I'll lock down size and position on text boxes and sometimes I won't. It really just depends on like how much flexibility that I want to give them. So maybe I will anticipate that maybe they might have like a larger, headline here. So maybe I'll give them that option to then expand the text box and move it around in the event they need to fit more text. Another thing that I'll do, let me unlock everything, is I will use these like alignment tools. So sometimes I'll do bottom align for a headline, and then this like subheading, I'll do like this top line. So that way, if their title is, by now or something, it'll still look good because it's going to bottom align it rather than something like top line, where now it kind of feels a little disconjointed. So that's something that I'll also try to do. That way it kind of allows me to lock down size and position. But in the event, they do have like a second line here, and say, it still looks good now as 2 lines. And it'll do the same thing if it goes to 3 lines. So that's kind of how I handle locking, is really anticipate what they might want to change and how much text. Make it the smallest size that you would want it to be, and then maybe lock down font size or something. Other things that you can lock down are actually the pages themselves. This is something that I also see a lot of people forget to do. So if I go ahead and just right click on a page, there's additional lock options that I can add to it. So I can either lock down all 3 of these, or I can just individually select which ones I want to lock. So the first one is page deletion. So I can really make sure that people aren't deleting certain pages and other ones that they can. Very helpful with like a slide deck, a magazine, or something that has a lot of pages. You can lock down that cover page and the back page, but then make all the other ones more dynamic and people can add or remove as they please. The next one is prevent adding content. So this really restricts people to what is currently on the canvas. So they can adjust these headlines, swap out images and text. But now if they try to add like another image, or they try to add like a text box, it's going to give them this error message that says you can't add additional content to this page. So I definitely use that one. And then the last one is locking properties and settings. This will just really make sure that they're not accidentally changing the page size. If you have a background color, make sure that they aren't doing that. So I usually do that at the very end. You can also select both the pages at once and then lock down those elements really quickly. We do have a question. I just want to make sure I'm reading it. So this question is, we've locked down the font style, but we are having issues with the font style staying the way we want when people copy and paste. Is there a solution we're missing? Yeah, so this is something I would also recommend testing out. The first setting that you're going to want to double check is make sure everything's locked down. So if we have the subheading, you'll really want to make sure style is locked down. I think you'll be okay if you unlock font face, but everything else about the style should be locked. And really make sure that this one is checked, because I have seen some people, they'll just skip that first one and they'll go like this and lock down everything. And that doesn't fully lock down like spacing and bullets and all of that. So usually I recommend do style first and then individually unlock those other elements. The next thing that you'll want to double check is in your brand settings. So if I go to brand assets, and then go to settings, you'll want to make sure that people don't have access to non-brand fonts. So that's another thing. If you don't have that selected, it's going to paste maybe a font that is pulling from somewhere else. So it should maintain like those style that you have locked down, but this also will prevent a lot of those weird mishaps.
Hey, Tyson, can you point out the importance of pasting as plain as well?
Yeah. So as kind of like another solution, hopefully this will work for you. But in the event people are still running into problems, especially if you have, like, let me do a quick example here, maybe with a heading and a subheading. Let's go ahead and set this. So let's say I have a box like this, where I have two different styles in one text box. Even though I'm locking down the style, technically if someone pastes here, it's going to paste with this font. If they paste here, it's going to paste with this font. And so there's more likely that they're going to like mess something up. So this is where Patrick mentioned it's important to use this paste plain, which I feel like should be the default anyways, but whatever. So if I go up here to edit, there's paste, which is just the typical like Command V or Control V. But if I do paste plain, that little like up arrow is the shift bar on your keyboard. So if you do shift and then Command V, it's going to paste it plain. So it's going to match it to what's currently selected within Lucipress. So for example, if I have this one's in a different font. I can copy this. And if I want it to be replaced here, I can do that Control, Shift, and then V, and it's going to match it to that specific font that I'm pasting to. So that's a really great way to just quickly update that. But now if I try to just like paste this, highlight everything, it's going to match it to that beginning style. So another thing to just kind of be aware of. So yeah, so hopefully that helps. And that's a great thing to like educate your users, like paste plain. It works in like pretty much every program that you use. So not just Lucipress. It's a great thing that they can use on like Word or other programs. Yeah, so another question about like tables, like does paste plain work with tables? And it should, as long as you have like the entire table formatted. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that I have the table selected. I don't have like one specific cell selected. I just have the table. I'll go over here to text, make sure that I globally apply like my brand font. Maybe I want it to be this like blue color. I don't know why, but I do. I want it to be 12, always middle aligned, always centered. This will like globally apply it to every single cell. So this is probably where, again, it's going to kind of eliminate a lot of those headaches with copying and pasting. So now if I wanted to copy this, which is in a different style, or maybe even this one, if I go in here and do Control Shift V, it's going to paste it with graphic, that purple, rather than this font and that version of purple. So that should help. I think if you just do, yeah, even this one, since I have style locked down, I'm not even holding shift, and it's still matching because I have style locked down. So yeah, if you're running into issues with tables are sometimes crazy. We can take a closer look at that. And then yes, that should also work. Someone asked if this will work if they're copying from like Excel or somewhere else. And yes, it should. So it should have that same effect as long as you have either style lockdown or you're holding down shift. Cool. So I know we're basically at time, so I just want to kind of go through these last remaining slides. Very quickly, one thing that I just recommend, let's say you've converted your templates, locked everything down. Here's kind of a cool thing that I recommend. If you have a lot of templates, it's helpful to set up a category that's labeled as new. And then maybe you could do it by month or by quarter. That way people can just quickly see which templates that you've recently added within the last couple of months. Because maybe someone hasn't logged in a while, and so maybe they don't really know what's actually been created. So that is an option. Also, kind of a creative workaround, if you want to give people the ability to create just totally from scratch and have these like blank documents, what I would recommend is setting up a template that's blank, then turning on the approval for that blank template. So this will still allow them to create whatever they want, but you'll see it before they can download and print it. So that's kind of another cool workaround. So sometimes I'll set up like a blank flyer, a blank social media post, or a blank presentation or something, and then just turn on that approval. Okay, so 3 slides for increasing adoption, and you can always review this slide deck. We'll send this to you as well. First thing that I recommend is just being very clear and open and gathering feedback with your users of these templates. There's a lot of different ways that you can gather feedback. You can do like a survey. You can do like in-person, either like a virtual call or just do it in the office where you're asking them about specific templates they use and maybe some that they don't use, some things that they like and don't like. Really just kind of asking a lot of great questions will help you really improve upon those templates. And then one thing to also think about is like, how do people request new templates? So if they want a different social media template or a different flyer, how do they go about sending that to you? And how do they, do they create from a blank template and then request it? Is there a form for them to fill out? This is kind of a really great thing to really communicate to your users. The other part that I would also recommend is just in Lucidpress, you can sort your templates by ones that are most popular. So you can go at the very top of that list, see what people are creating the most, and then go all the way to the bottom of that list and seeing what maybe people aren't using. And that's kind of a great indicator of maybe you need to edit those templates. Maybe you need to advertise them a little bit more, let people know that those exist, etc. Also, if you're on our business subscription, we can also give you data about who your top users are. So that's also very helpful, especially as you're gathering feedback to kind of know who are the people who are creating the most and getting kind of data and feedback from them. So if this is something that's, if you're on a business plan, just reach out to us and we can send you that data. Okay, I think this is the last one. So incentivize. I think there's a lot of different creative ways that I've seen people to get their team to use more templates. One thing that I've done, especially at like the beginning of launching either a bunch of new templates, is just to give some sort of incentive for maybe the first person to use a specific template. Like maybe you have a new social media template or a postcard, and you say, hey, for the first person who submits a print order or who posts on LinkedIn using this template gets this. You can also do like a raffle. So this is something that we've also done where we wanted everyone to post on social media or to update their slide deck templates. And so we said, if you emailed me a screenshot that you've done it, we'll enter you in to be in a raffle. So that can go definitely a long way of just getting people to feel a bit more excited to get in there and figure out how easy it is to then create a document. So those are kind of two different ways that you can do that. And I know there's tons of other different ways. If you've done this in your own organization, feel free to put that in the chat and let us know how that looks. But I think that's about it. So what I would recommend is definitely going through your templates. Oh, looks like we have one more slide. This one's all about informing your team. So if people don't know that you've created new templates, that's something that you should definitely work on. So this can be like a monthly email update of new templates that you've created. It could be posting on Teams or on Slack about a new template that you've created. Whatever that you need to do to just always have it in front of them to let them know that new content is created. That really helps them know that you're focused on helping them be successful. So yeah, so that's tons of different tips. Hopefully you learned something from that you can then apply to your own templates. I think this is definitely a great way for you to go through and audit some of your existing templates. We have some customers that have like a couple hundred of templates, and so it's sometimes overwhelming for users. And so this is a great way to kind of go in and see how can you make these templates better for your team. And if you're at the beginning stages of creating templates, it's also a great starting point of just making your templates more successful from the start. So I'll maybe stay on for maybe like 2 or 3 minutes to kind of answer any other questions. So feel free to put those in the chat or the Q&A. Otherwise, feel free to hop off, and thanks so much for joining, and we'll send a link to this recording shortly after. So someone did ask, like, other than like sorting by most popular, is there other metrics that we can track? So yeah, so on our business subscription, we can track like how many times a specific template has been used. So we can really give you the numbers of like this postcard's been used 30 times, or this one's been used 10 times. We can give you data of like when someone has last logged in, how many documents they've created, how many documents they've downloaded or posted on social media. So yeah, these, as Patrick put in the chat, these metrics do have to be requested to your customer success manager, and they'll pull this data for you. So yeah, just kind of be aware of that. So I'm kind of going through the chat, making sure we've answered everything. Looks good. Patrick, is there anything that you would want to add or anything that I missed?
No, thank you so much for doing it. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Again, we will be sending out a copy of this recording to everyone that registered, and look forward for our next upcoming webinar next month.